Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today, and we are talking about 5 games that we all love which are not going to be getting sequels. Now this is like a bittersweet video because we're going to be visiting games of the past that we love so much, but on the other hand, we're not seeing anything new from them, so it's also equally as upsetting. Nonetheless, let's dive into our first title, which is Sleeping Dogs. Now Sleeping Dogs stands for me as the best hidden gem to come out of the Xbox 360/PS3 generation. You play as Wei Shen, who was returned to Hong Kong from San Francisco to take down the Sun On Yi, who plagued the streets of the city. Wei is constantly torn between his job at the HKPD and the loyalty he has to his friends in the Triad organization, which makes for a super entertaining story full of twists and turns. The supporting cast for this title only amplifies the experience, but it's not just a stellar story that sets Sleeping Dogs apart from other open world titles. The combat was unremarkable for a game of its stature, as it was akin to something along the lines of Batman Arkham actually, except moves were way more brutal. I'm talking breaking bones, using the environment to crush your opponent, and overall just beating the hell out of your enemies made for a refreshing change of pace compared to the typical crime-focused third-person open-world games we tend to see. Not that those are bad, but Sleeping Dogs was different and it paid off. When the narrative for this game concluded, there was room for a sequel. Instead of following up with that though, Sleeping Dogs developer United Front Games worked on Triad Wars instead. Triad Wars was an upcoming open-world online multiplayer action-adventure title set in the Sleeping Dogs universe. You create your own gang member within the Triad, and honestly the game was a lot similar to the original Sleeping Dogs. Similar combat, animations, and the same exact open world. It was kind of weird. The difference was that you could take on open world activities with your friends, and they were fairly basic. If I were to make a comparison, Triad Wars would be the Sleeping Dogs version of The Division. Regardless, the game was relatively dead on arrival. Not many gamers supported this MMO idea, which led to the cancellation of Triad Wars. Gamers were hopeful that we would finally see that sequel that Sleeping Dogs so deserved, but instead we got Smash and Grab, which was also unique. Smash and Grab was a 3v3 competitive gang warfare, as each side will grapple, shoot, and smash their way to victory by collecting $50,000 in goods from lockdown high-end shopping districts or from the opposing team. So you're fighting the other team, but you're also taking on all these zombies. It was good fun, but here's the kicker, is that United Front Games was shut down before the ball could really get rolling. A sad fate for a studio that's willing to try new ideas and go against the norm, but this also means that we won't be seeing a sequel to Sleeping Dogs. The way United Front Games approached the creation of their intellectual properties was oddly similar to Pandemic Games, which, speaking of, oh hey, how about the Saboteur? Man, oh man, the closing of Pandemic Games will never, ever make sense to me. This is the developer who created Star Wars Battlefront, Lord of the Rings Conquest, and so on. But the title we're focusing on is, as I said, the Saboteur. Now I admit there's a bit of bias here because I'm a sucker for any type of title, whether it's a game or a movie that's set in the World War II era, but the Saboteur reviewed quite well and gamers felt the same. You are the Irish bullet sponge known as Sean Devlin, who loves pretty girls, racing, and most importantly, dismantling the Nazi establishment. The title, The Saboteur, suggests exactly what the game was based around, which is blowing shit up. Each section of the open world started off in black and white as it was under Nazi control, but if you destroyed enough of their equipment in that sector, they would lose influence in that part of Paris, and color would return, symbolizing bringing hope to the people. The game encouraged stealth and planning out, which made the destruction all the more satisfying. The Saboteur story wasn't all that special, and the only reason it sticks with me is mainly due to nostalgia, but it's passable. Turns out Pandemic Games was actually working on a sequel for the Saboteur, but EA, did their thing and exerted so much creative control over the project that jack shit got done, and eventually Pandemic Games was shut down, which still remains, once again, as one of the most puzzling happenings in this industry. I mean, why? EA saying that, oh yeah, their games were too expensive, but they were good. I don't get it, because good games sell, so something's fishy about that, but they made incredible games, people supported them, and at least that's what I see. But alas, the Saboteur will go down on the long list of games we love and will never see another iteration of. Oh man, bring on the waterworks. Republic Commando. This is the mature Star Wars title that tells the story of a specialized commando unit known as Delta Squad, rather than some ridiculously powerful Jedi. Not that I don't like those stories, but it was just a different change of pace. Delta Squad consisted of Boss, Fixer, Sev, and Scorch, who are all likable characters that you care for throughout the entire campaign because of their standout personalities and pure individual badassery. Republic Commando is a run-of-the-mill first-person shooter nowadays, if I'm honest, but it focuses on tactics within the intense gameplay, which helped separate from the bunch at the time of its release. Sadly, the title ends on one of gaming's biggest cliffhangers. What happened to Sev? This is a question we desperately needed answering to, and developer LucasArts planned on providing them in the sequel. The sequel would reveal that Sev is one of the rebellion's first soldiers, and he would launch an operation to turn his brothers in arms from Delta Squad against the Empire, which sounds absolutely insane. Much like the fate of Star Wars 1313 and the original Star Wars Battlefront 3, the project was lost as LucasArts attempted to reboot itself, and also much of the original team that worked on Republic Commando had left the studio. Chalk this up as another sequel we shall sadly never see for such a beloved title. It just must be something about unique ideas that leads to horrible scenarios for these game developers. Kingdoms of Amalur is the last game I purchased because of a game demo and was so worth it. This is a title that puts the player choice and role-playing at the forefront, but didn't sacrifice any of its combat system in exchange. You create your character and are fittingly titled as the Faithless One, who died in the beginning of the game, and you're trying to just figure out who revived you and as well as why. The open world of the Fey Lands is colorful, vast, and fun to explore, but some of the real fun is when you engage the enemy. There are so many options with unique fighting styles and abilities, as well as accumulating fate points so you can enter the Reckoning mode and wreck everyone in sight. 38 Studios founder Kurt Schilling described the game as a cross between God of War and Elder Scrolls 4 Oblivion, which I'd honestly say is pretty accurate. Sadly though, 38 Studios filed for bankruptcy only 4 months after Kingdoms of Amalur launched, leaving Rhode Island taxpayers on the hook for the entire loan that they took on to get the game done. After years of investigation and potential criminal charges, 38 Studios agreed to a $2.5 million settlement with Rhode Island. Now with all those financial issues tangled up in the IP that is Kingdoms of Amalur, it's safe to say that nobody will touch this series again, even if it's possible, because it's probably cursed. And the last one, number 5, yep, it's another Star Wars game. Let's be real, people, I could make an entire fucking video on every Star Wars game that was awesome and didn't receive its deserving sequel. My favorite game of all time is Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, and my favorite sequel of all time is automatically Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2 because of how incredible of a job Obsidian did with the property. They took it in a dark direction and really challenged the morals of each and every decision the player can make in-game. Kreia still stands as one of the most conflicting characters ever created in a video game, who will leave you pondering and potentially doubting yourself with each move you make, or even telling her to screw herself because you know what the hell is up. The music drags you into this untouchable atmosphere even more, and the strategic gameplay that still somehow shows me something new every year I sit down to play the game. The only fault that instantly comes up to mind when you look at KOTOR 2 is obviously its ending. Like many games on this list, the ending was left open for continuation as BioWare was developing KOTOR 3 for the Xbox 360. The worlds were developed, the characters were created, and the story was written. To put it in simpler terms, KOTOR 3 was relatively close to completion in its development, and that absolutely crushes my heart to say, as we were so close to finally having the game that I and many others yearn for on practically a weekly basis. Similar to the fate of Republic Commando, LucasArts hit some tough times, and that led to the cancellation of KOTOR 3, among many other promising looking Star Wars titles. I do hold out hope for a reboot of the Old Republic franchise, or maybe even an HD remaster of the first 2 games, but I no longer am holding my breath for a third entry. It's been over 10 years since the last entry in this series, and there's a book by Drew Karpyshyn, which you guys should read if you care about the Old Republic, which fills all the blanks from the ending of KOTOR 2. Those are 5 games that I think most of us can safely say we love, we enjoyed, that are not getting sequels, and that's sad to say. Now, there's also a couple of other games that I thought were going to make the list, like Singularity or The Darkness 2, but it seems like some of those are potentially going to happen in the near future, so who knows with those. Fingers crossed. I'd like to be wrong in this video, to tell you the truth. I'd love to see each of these games get a sequel and me to look like a complete asshole, but nonetheless, I do hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any memories of these games, then feel free to share them in the comments down below. I'd love to get nostalgic with you guys here. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, like me on Facebook. The links are, as always, in the description down below. Check out SugarBomb.com, the place by Bethesda fans for Bethesda fans. Other than that, stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.